Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a deep breath and exploring something we all interact with every day, but maybe don't think too much about air quality.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're going to decode the air quality index, or AQI.
Okay.
It's that number you see on weather apps telling you how clean or polluted the air is.
Yeah, you can think of the AQI like a translator for the air we breathe. And we've got excerpts from an article called Air Quality Index Explain to kind of guide us.
Okay, cool. So if the AQI is like a translator, what language is it translating? Like, what exactly is it measuring out there in the atmosphere?
Well, the AQI focuses on 5 major air pollutants. Yeah. Ground level ozone particulate matter, PM2.5 and PM10 carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide.
Okay.
You might be thinking, wait, there are way more pollutants than that, right? And you'd be right. But these are the ones regulated by the Clean Air Act because they pose the biggest threat to public health.
Makes sense to focus on the biggest troublemakers first, I guess.
Right.
But tell me more about these PM2.5 and PM10 particles.
Yeah.
Are they like tiny bits of dust? And why do they have different names?
They're both particulate matter, but they differ in size, which is super important.
Right.
Think of it like this. PM10 is like inhaling beach sand, while PM2.5 is more like breathing in super fine dust that can get deep into your lungs.
Oh, wow.
So the smaller the particle, the more dangerous it can be.
Okay, wow. I'm starting to see why we need this AQI translator. It's not just about whether the air smells bad. It's about these invisible particles that can really affect our health.
Right.
But how does the AQI actually translate all this into a number that tells us what to do? Well,
the AQI is a scale from 0 to 500.
Yeah.
The higher the number, the higher the level of air pollution, and the greater the potential health risk. It's kind of like a warning system for your lungs.
Okay, so walk me through the different levels on this warning system.
Yeah.
What's considered good, and when should we start getting worried?
From 0 to 50 is the good zone, where you can pretty much breathe easy.
Okay.
Then you move into moderate territory from 51 to 100. This is where some folks, especially sensitive groups like children, the elderly, or people with existing respiratory problems, might start to experience some effects.
So it's not like a sudden drop-off in air quality.
Yeah.
It's more of a gradual increase in potential risk as the number goes up.
Exactly. Then we hit the unhealthy for sensitive groups, range from 101 to 150, where more people might start feeling the impact.
What does that impact feel like? Is it just a bit of coughing, or are we talking more serious symptoms?
It can vary from person to person, but you might notice things like shortness of breath, irritation in your eyes, nose, and throat, or even chest pain, especially if you have a pre-existing respiratory condition like asthma.
Okay, things are definitely starting to sound more serious.
Right.
What happens as we climb even higher on the AQI scale?
Well, from 151 to 200, the air quality is considered unhealthy for everyone, not just sensitive groups.
Okay.
At this level, even healthy people might experience those symptoms we talked about, especially with prolonged exposure.
So even if I think I'm a healthy person, I shouldn't ignore the AQI if it's in that range.
Absolutely. And then from 201 to 300, we hit very unhealthy territory. This is when things get really concerning.
Yeah.
The risk of respiratory illnesses increases significantly, and even short-term exposure can be harmful.
Wow. So it's not just about long-term effects.
Yeah.
Even a few hours in very unhealthy air can be a problem.
Yes. That's why it's so important to pay attention to the AQI, especially if you're planning to spend time outdoors.
Okay.
And above 300 is the hazardous zone, which is basically a big red flag to stay inside as much as possible.
Got it. Okay. I think I'm getting a much clearer picture of this AQI scale now.
Yeah.
It's not just a random number. It's a real indicator of potential health risks.
Right, and it's interesting because the specific health impacts can vary depending on the pollutant.
Okay.
For example, ground-level ozone can be particularly irritating to the lungs, while particulate matter can trigger asthma attacks and even contribute to heart disease over time.
Okay, I had no idea air quality could be linked to heart problems.
Yeah.
This is getting really eye-opening. So we have this AQI scale, and we know it's important for our health.
Right.
Where do we actually stand globally? Are there any countries out there rocking this clean air game?
There are. Iceland consistently ranks at the top for clean air, with super low levels of PM2.5 pollution.
Oh, wow.
They average just 3.4 micrograms per cubic meter.
Wow, that's impressive. What's their secret? Is everyone living off the grid in eco-friendly hobbit holes?
Well, it's not that fantastical, but they do have some advantages.
Okay.
Low population density definitely helps.
Right.
They also have strict environmental regulations and a unique geographical situation.
Mm-hmm.
Iceland is quite isolated, and they utilize a lot of clean energy sources like geothermal power.
So it's not just one magic solution,
Yeah.
but a combination of factors that contribute to their clean air.
Right.
Is there anything specific about their policies that other countries could learn from?
What's interesting is that their focus on renewable energy isn't just about reducing emissions, it's also tied to energy independence. They've made strategic decisions to leverage their natural resources in a way that benefits both the environment and the economy.
That's a really interesting point. It suggests that clean air isn't just an environmental issue. It's tied to broader economic and political considerations.
Exactly. And Iceland's case shows that those considerations can be aligned in a way that creates a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Are there other clean air champions we should know about?
Absolutely. Besides Iceland, we see other European nations like Estonia and Finland consistently performing well in air quality rankings.
Yeah.
They also have those impressive low PM2.5 levels.
Yes, they do.
So Europe seems to be leading the charge.
Yeah.
What about outside of Europe? Are there other countries with exceptionally clean air?
Yes. Grenada and Australia also stand out, maintaining great air quality with those low PM2.5 levels.
Okay, so we've got Iceland, Estonia, Finland, Grenada, and Australia, a pretty diverse group of clean air champions.
Right.
What do they all have in common besides amazing air quality?
One key commonality is their strong commitment to sustainability.
Okay.
They've all invested heavily in renewable energy sources and prioritize energy efficiency. For example, Estonia gets a whopping 65% of its energy from wind power.
That's incredible. So it seems like a shift toward renewable energy is a key factor in achieving clean air.
Yeah.
But what about those countries struggling with air pollution? Where are we seeing the worst air quality globally?
Unfortunately, South Asia and the Middle East are currently facing the most significant air pollution challenges.
Okay.
For example, Chad has a staggering average PM2.5 concentration of 89.7 micrograms per cubic meter. That's over 26 times higher than Iceland's.
That's a huge difference. Are there other countries facing similarly severe air quality challenges?
Sadly, yes. Other countries with very high PM2.5 levels include Iraq, Pakistan, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Burkina Faso, Kuwait, and India.
Wow.
They are all dealing with a complex web of factors contributing to their poor air quality.
What are some of the major factors driving these high pollution levels?
Rapid industrialization and urbanization are playing significant roles.
Okay.
As these countries experience economic growth, there's often a surge in industrial activity and vehicle emissions.
It's interesting to see how economic development can have both positive and negative impacts on air quality. So we've seen examples of countries with incredible air quality and others struggling with severe pollution. I guess the big question is, what can we learn from these examples, both good and bad?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore further in part 2. We'll dive into how you can stay informed about air quality in your own community and what steps you can take to protect yourself and contribute to a cleaner world.
Okay, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Welcome back to the deep dive. In part 1, we decoded the AQI and saw how it plays out in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
It really highlighted how air quality isn't just an abstract concept,
Right.
It's something that directly affects our health and well-being.
Exactly. And that brings us to the practical side of things.
Okay.
How can we stay informed about the air quality in our own communities? Knowledge is power,
Right.
but only if you use it.
It's like knowing there's a thunderstorm coming, but not checking the forecast to see if you need an umbrella.
That's a great analogy. Checking the AQI is like checking the weather forecast for your lungs.
Okay, so how do we actually check the AQI? Is there some special device we need, or can we just use our phones?
Thankfully, it's pretty easy.
Oh.
Many weather apps and websites now include the AQI in their forecasts. You can also find real-time AQI data on websites like airnow.gov, which is run by the US EPA.
So it's really at our fingertips.
Yeah.
No excuses for not staying informed. But let's say we check the AQI and it's not looking so good.
Right.
What are our options? Do we just have to barricade ourselves inside until the air clears up?
Not necessarily. There are steps you can take to protect yourself even when the AQI is elevated.
Yeah.
The most obvious one is to limit your time outdoors, especially if you fall into one of those sensitive groups we talked about earlier.
Right. Children, older adults, and people with existing respiratory problems.
Yeah.
What if you can't avoid being outside on a high AQI day?
If you have to be outdoors, try to avoid strenuous activities.
Okay.
The harder you breathe, the more pollutants you're taking in.
So maybe skip that outdoor workout when the air quality is poor. Are there other precautions we can take?
Wearing a mask designed to filter out air pollution can really help.
Oh.
N95 masks are particularly effective as they filter out those fine particles that can cause the most damage.
Those are the same masks we were using during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So it's like having a portable air purifier for your face.
Exactly. They can make a big difference, especially if you're spending time in an area with elevated pollution levels. But protecting ourselves individually is just one part of the equation.
Right.
What about tackling air pollution at its source? Can our everyday choices really make a difference in the bigger picture?
That's a good question. It's easy to feel like individual actions are just a drop in the bucket compared to the scale of the problem.
I hear you, but those individual actions can add up to create a ripple effect.
Huh?
One of the most impactful things we can do is to reduce our reliance on cars. Choosing to walk, bike, or take public transportation instead of driving alone significantly reduces emissions.
Okay, I see your point. It's not just about one person doing it. It's about shifting the overall culture towards more sustainable transportation options. What about our energy use at home? Can that contribute to cleaner air?
Absolutely. Being mindful of our energy consumption is another key piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Choosing energy-efficient appliances, using less electricity, and supporting renewable energy sources can all help reduce emissions from power plants.
So it's about thinking beyond just our individual actions and looking at how our choices support a cleaner energy system as a whole.
Exactly. And remember, individual actions often lead to broader changes.
Yeah.
When people start making different choices, it sends a signal to businesses and policymakers that there's a demand for cleaner, more sustainable options.
Right. It's about voting with our wallets and our lifestyles. But what about those of us who want to take an even more active role? Can we actually get involved in improving air quality in our communities?
Absolutely. There are so many ways to be a part of the solution. Many communities have citizen science programs that allow residents to get involved in air quality monitoring.
So we can actually contribute to scientific research and help gather data on air pollution. Sounds really interesting.
It is. It's a great way to learn more about air quality in your area and contribute to a better understanding of the problem.
Yeah.
And beyond data collection, you can also advocate for change in your community.
What are some ways we can advocate for cleaner air?
Think about supporting initiatives to plant more trees, which naturally help clean the air.
Right.
You could push for better public transportation options or advocate for stricter emissions standards for local businesses.
So it's about using our voices and our collective power to create real change at a local level. And that brings us to the global perspective. We've seen how countries like Iceland are tackling air pollution effectively. What can we learn from their success?
Iceland's case highlights the importance of long-term planning and strategic investments in clean energy. They didn't achieve their incredible air quality overnight. It took decades of focused effort and a commitment to sustainability.
Their example shows that achieving clean air is possible, but it requires a sustained and coordinated effort.
Exactly. It's not just about short-term fixes, but about making fundamental changes to the way we live, consume energy, and design our cities.
Speaking of cities, in the final part of our deep dive, we'll be joined by an expert in sustainable urban planning to discuss innovative solutions for tackling air pollution in those urban areas where it tends to be most concentrated.
Until then, remember, knowledge is power, but only if you act on it. Check your local AQI, make informed choices, and don't underestimate the power of your individual actions.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We spent the last two parts unpacking the AQI, its impact on our health, and ways we can protect ourselves. But I'm really excited about this final part because we're shifting gears from individual actions to those larger scale solutions.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about how countries like Iceland are tackling air pollution.
Right.
But what about those dense urban areas where pollution often gets trapped?
It's a great question. Cities present unique challenges, but they're also hubs of innovation and creativity. So we have a lot to explore in terms of solutions, and to help us dive into this topic, we're joined by a special guest, Dr. Anya Patel, an expert in sustainable urban planning. Welcome to the show, Dr. Patel.
Dr. Anya Patel, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Dr. Patel, you've worked on some fascinating projects around the world. What are some of those promising trends you're seeing in urban planning that give you hope for cleaner air in our cities? Dr. Anya Patel, one of the most exciting trends is the move towards green infrastructure. Okay? Dr. Anya Patel. It's about incorporating nature into the urban fabric, not just as an aesthetic element, but as a functional part of the city's ecosystem. Green infrastructure. You mean like rooftop gardens and parks. Dr. Anya Patel. Exactly. Think green roofs that absorb rainwater and reduce the urban heat island effect. Okay? Dr. Anya Patel. Urban forests that act as carbon sinks, and even green walls that can filter pollutants from the air. It's like turning the city itself into a giant air purifier. Dr. Anya Patel.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I imagine these green spaces also have benefits beyond air quality, right, Dr. Anya Patel? Absolutely. They create cooler, more pleasant environments, reduce noise pollution, and provide habitat for wildlife. Right, Dr. Anya Patel. They also promote physical and mental well-being for residents.
It's a holistic approach that recognizes the interconnectedness of urban systems. Clean air isn't just about reducing emissions. It's about creating a healthier, more resilient urban environment as a whole.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
But what about the technological side of things? Are there any innovations that are particularly promising for tackling air pollution in cities? Dr. Anya Patel. The rise of smart cities is a game changer. We're now using sensors and data analytics to monitor pollution levels in real time. Dr. Anya Patel. And adjust traffic flow, optimize waste management, and even control industrial emissions more effectively.
It's like giving the city a nervous system that can sense and respond to changes in air quality.
So we're not just reacting to pollution after the fact, we're using technology to prevent it in the first place. Dr. Anya Patel. Right. What about transportation? It's a huge source of pollution in cities. Are there any solutions on the horizon that could transform how we get around? Dr. Anya Patel. We're seeing a rapid shift towards electric vehicles, and the infrastructure to support them is expanding quickly. Okay, Dr. Anya Patel. But equally exciting are the advancements in public transportation. Think high-speed rail systems that connect cities and reduce the need for air travel. Okay, Dr. Anya Patel. And even autonomous buses that can navigate congested streets more efficiently. So it's not just about switching to electric cars, it's about rethinking the whole transportation system. Dr. Anya Patel. Yeah. What about those of us who love to walk or bike? Are cities becoming more friendly to those modes of transportation? Dr. Anya Patel. Absolutely. Many cities are investing in bike lanes, pedestrian walkways, and other infrastructure that make active transportation safer and more enjoyable. Okay, Dr. Anya Patel. And this shift isn't just about reducing emissions. It's about promoting healthier lifestyles and creating more vibrant, livable urban spaces.
It's about recognizing that clean air isn't just an environmental issue, it's a public health issue, a transportation issue, an economic issue, and ultimately an issue of social equity.
That's a powerful point. Dr. Patel, hearing you talk about all these solutions makes me feel incredibly optimistic about the future of our cities. Dr. Anya Patel, I share your optimism. The challenges are complex, but the solutions are within reach. It requires a collaborative effort from governments, businesses, communities, and individuals. Right, Dr. Anya Patel. But I believe we have the knowledge, the technology, and the will to create cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable cities for generations to come. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today, Dr. Patel.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive into the AQI has given you a better understanding of the air we breathe, its impact on our health, and the exciting solutions being implemented around the world.
Remember, clean air isn't a luxury. It's a fundamental right. Stay curious, stay informed, and let's all do our part to create a world where everyone can breathe easy.
This has been The Deep Dive, signing off.